All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue with our material for macromolecules. As far as that was concerned, let's see where we left off. All right, so the last thing we were discussing was carbohydrates. We were mentioning how carbs are basically your sugars, very simple structures. They provide great source of energy. We talked about fiber and how extra glucose we love to store in our liver in the method of glycogen. So I would make sure we are comfortable with that. Next, let's talk about lipids. Lipids are the next macromolecule we're going to discuss. Typically, as we progress through this unit, carbs are probably the most simplistic version of macromolecules, and then it gets a little bit more challenging as we progress. Another name for lipids is just fats, right? That's just another common name that we use, but I would just make sure we know the word lipid. The unit of a fat or a lipid is going to be the fatty acid. So make sure we're comfortable with that. The fatty acid is the basic structure. Here we're able to see what a fatty acid looks like as far as overall is concerned. I would make sure that we're comfortable with general concept. Like you don't need to know what the molecular structure of a fat looks like, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to know that there's a head and a tail. And then when you look at the head and tail, there's some structures that you see at the bottom here. It's called hydrophobic and hydrophilic. So I would make sure we're comfortable with this hydrophobic term and hydrophilic. The first one's pretty easy. If you're hydrophobic, phobia is fear, right? Hydro is water. So that means you have a fear of water. So in this case, the hydrophobic region does not interact with water, whereas philic is going to be something that you love or you're attracted to. So hydrophilic is going to be the region of the fat that interacts with water. Very important to how fat molecules work. So don't worry about that for now, though. Functions of fat or lipids, energy. Now, I talked about back when we were discussing carbs and carbohydrates. Oh, yeah, carbs are a great source of energy. Does that mean fats are also a source of energy? 100%. Fats just happen to be a better source of energy for long term. So for long-term energy, fats are an excellent source of energy, no doubt about it. Carbs are more of your short-term bang for your buck, just get quick energy out there. Fats are also helpful for structural purposes, for other more complicated things that we're going to discuss. Cushioning for the body, so it makes it so that when you sit down, you don't have you're not immediately uncomfortable. There's a little bit of cushion, but obviously, if you slammed your butt down when you sat down, you're probably going to hurt yourself. And it also prevents heat loss. That's a big thing too. You want to make sure that you're not losing heat, especially if you live in a colder area. In the earliest days of our species' existence, when we were very nomadic, people who lived further from the equator, so closer to the poles, the further away from the equator you get, the less sunlight you get in it every day, so it becomes colder. These people didn't have the type of clothing that we exist or that we have, right? So they needed to survive. So for them, survival was literally having a higher body fat percentage. If you look at other animals, by the way, it's the same thing. A lot of other animals that live in cold regions have blubber. This is, by definition, layers of fat that's going to keep them warm when it's frigid outside. What foods are going to be high in fat? This is a super short summary. There's a better slide coming up that describes this, and I'll show you guys. But it's going to be found in things like butter, margarine, processed foods like candy. So that's a couple things that we observe. Okay, now speaking of fats, we can kind of break fats down into two major categories. We have saturated and unsaturated. Just to keep it simple for us. Oh, sorry. Just to keep it simple for us, the saturated fats are going to be considered your bad fats. These are the fats that we want to try to limit our intake. Now, the chemistry of a saturated fat, this is what you see down here, the chemical structure of it. We don't need to worry about that for now. So don't worry about single bonding or double bonding or triple bonding. That's stuff that you may learn in other classes. What I do need to know is that it is a solid at room temperature. It's found in mostly animal products, and you want to help reduce how much of this you consume. So reduce intake of saturated fats. So again, most animal products, so their meat and the things that they produce, so eggs, dairy, that's all going to be saturated for the most part. Why this is a problem is that this can clog the blood vessels. It can form plaques, and those plaques can obviously harm you. It raises blood pressure, it makes the heart work harder, and it can lead to cardiovascular disease and heart disease in general. Okay. Now, if we have saturated fats, we have the opposite, unsaturated. Unsaturated fats are going to be the ones that are good for you. These are fats that are more stable, hence why they have double and triple bonding. Again, more chemistry, but they're liquid at room temperature. So I do need you to know these elemental states, stuff that we learned previously in other classes, right? Solid, liquid, gas, plasma. Saturated are solid. Unsaturated is liquid at a room temperature. It's typically found in plant products. And this stuff is good for you. Better intake. You want to consume this stuff. So one of the best sources of unsaturated fats is fish. More specifically, there's an oil found in fish, and a lot of different fish, not every fish, but a lot of different fish, called omega-3 fatty acid or fish oil. A lot of people take it as a supplement, so they're not necessarily popping pills or just eating a lot of fish, which you can get it from that method as far as naturally speaking. But you can also take it in a supplemental form. But I highly suggest if you're not already taking that, I'm sure your parents are likely taking it already, but it can be helpful nonetheless. Okay. Here we're just seeing some of the molecular structures. I'm not expecting you to memorize this. This is pure chemistry, and honestly, this is much higher chemistry. But what I do find unique is that when you look at saturated versus unsaturated, the literal difference is the double bonds. And it's not a lot of double bonds. It's just a couple double bonds in place instead of some single bonds, and now this structure becomes so much more stable. Cholesterol. We're still under the umbrella of fat, by the way. This is all related to lipids and fats. Cholesterol, I like to think of like a cousin of lipids. Cholesterol is an essential component of cell membranes. Every single animal, from a simple worm to us, have cell membranes. The opposite of that is what plants have. Cell walls, right? More rigid, firm. The cholesterol acts like a precursor for hormones, so it helps hormones do their job. And allows us to make hormones. And cholesterol is also an essential component of bile. Bile is something that you may have experienced if you've ever vomited before. It does play an important role in digestion, which we're going to learn in the digestive system. But like I said, if you've ever vomited, sometimes it's not uncommon to vomit up a little bit of bile. Now, the interesting thing, the body naturally creates cholesterol. You naturally synthesize it, but we need more than our body can make. So we consume it in our diet. The thing that we have to be careful with is that when you consume it in your diet, there's such a thing as good and bad cholesterol. But here's the good news. Good and bad cholesterol play by the same rules as saturated and unsaturated fats. So let's get into that. So first of all, two types of cholesterol, LDL and HDL. The good cholesterol, I'm going to go ahead and write this down for us, is HDL. The bad cholesterol is LDL. As far as that's concerned, yes, you can learn what that stands for just for context purposes. Low density lipoprotein versus high density lipoprotein. As long as you can remember high is good, low is bad, then we're fine. That's really what I need you to worry about. LDL is going to form plaques in the blood vessels, which can cause, as we mentioned, cardiac issues. HDL clears the plaque. So your body is a very efficient machine. As long as you give yourself balance, you'll be fine. And what do I mean by balance? It's as simple as you can have your burger, you can have your fries, you can have a lot of stuff that is high in LDL, but as long as you try to balance it out and, the rest of your days of a week, you try to eat cleaner, yeah, you can clean up your diet and it can allow your body to process things easier. Now, as far as all of this, don't have to memorize the specifics. I can generalize it really easy. LDL, you'll find it in things like milk, mayo, butter, eggnog, cream, cheeses, sour cream, ice cream. What's the common thread here? LDL is found in dairy. Let me switch it back to the pen. LDL is found in dairy and animal products. So again, animal products is like anything like dairy or butter or butter's a dairy, but or eggs as well. Honey, I've had somebody ask that. Honey is an animal product because bees make it, but it's not something that is cholesterol related, so we're good there. But the meat of animals, 100%. If I had to rank meat from healthiest to unhealthiest, without a doubt, the healthiest meat for us that we normally consume, because some countries eat other types of meat too, would be fish as number one. Then under that, chicken and turkey. Poultry, for the most part, is also considered a lean meat. It's healthier for us. Then under that would be beef, and then way under that would be pork. Um, as unfortunate as that may be, we can enjoy it for tasty purposes and enjoying it from time to time, but just monitor, right? HDL, on the other hand, you'll see it in olive oil, beans, legumes, whole grains. By the way, if you ever wonder why Cheerios constantly promotes a healthy heart, it's because their cereal is made of whole grain. So having whole grains, yes, it does have HDL. Is it a lot of HDL? Not really, but it's not like they're lying. Fruit, not every fruit though. High fiber fruit. So things like your berries, which like strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, blueberries. These are all things that have a higher concentration of fiber, which can be excellent for HDL. Fatty fish, again, most fish have by definition a lot of oils that we need, but there are some fish that are healthier than others. Flax and nuts as well. So we can summarize HDL into plant products / fish. So again, it's just a summary, right? We're just generalizing here. But as long as you can understand that HDL is the good stuff, LDL is the bad stuff, you want to consume more good than bad, right? But if you maintain that balance in life, there's no problems. Your body does a pretty good job of keeping things under wraps. It's when you swing the balance in one direction too far is when you really start to have problems. So that's where we're going to finish. That's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about relating to lipids and fats. We're going to continue on forward, moving on with our next macromolecule, which will be nucleic acids. So we'll get to that eventually. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day.